The rain in Oregon doesn't wash you clean. It tries to drown you. It was hitting the windshield of my truck with the kind of rhythmic violence I usually associated with a squall line in the North Atlantic. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white, listening to the wipers slap back and forth like a metronome counting down to a disaster. I hadn't been back to the property in 6 weeks. I bought the place 40 acres of overgrown scrub and a house that leaned dangerously to the left side unseen from a satellite phone in the middle of the Pacific. I needed land. I needed dirt. I needed to be as far away from the ocean as I could get without leaving the state. The irony that I had bought a ranch 5 miles from the coast wasn't lost on me. It was just another punchline in the long, bad joke that was my life since the accident. I turned off the highway onto the gravel access road. Mud sprayed the wheel wells. I was expecting silence. I was expecting the hollow, rotting emptiness of a house that had been abandoned since the 90s. I was looking forward to it. Silence doesn't ask you where your partner went. Silence doesn't ask why you came back up when he didn't. I rounded the final bend, ready to unlock the rusty gate. The gate was open. I braked hard, the truck sliding a foot in the muck before finding traction. I stared through the rain-streaked glass. Smoke. There was wood smoke curling up from the chimney of the main house. And light. Warm, yellow, impossible light spilling out of the front windows, cutting through the gray storm. My first thought was, squatters. My second thought was, good. Maybe they'll kill me and save me the trouble of eating this gas station sandwich. I killed the engine. The silence I had craved was replaced by the roar of the wind in the fir trees. I stepped out, my boots sinking 2 inches into the saturated earth. I didn't have a gun. I had a flare gun in the glove box. But shooting a flare into a wooden house seemed like excessive punctuation. I grabbed my heavy maglite. Instead, I walked up the porch steps. The wood groaned under my weight, a sound like a dying whale. I raised my hand to knock, but the door swung open before I touched it. A woman stood there. She wasn't holding a weapon. She was holding a spatula. She looked to be in her late 30s, with hair the color of wet sand pulled back in a messy bun that defied gravity. Her eyes were sharp, intelligent, and completely unimpressed by the 6'2" soaking wet man standing on her porch. "You're late," she said. Her voice was raspy, like she'd been shouting over the wind. I blinked, water dripping from my nose. "I'm late?" The roof in the hallway started leaking 20 minutes ago. I put a bucket under it, but it's filling up fast. She stepped back, opening the door wider. "Well, are you the plumber or just a very large lost dog?" "I'm the owner," I said. The spatula didn't waver. She looked me up and down, assessing the threat level. "Brooks Price? Yeah, you look different than your driver's license photo," she said. Less hopeful. "That photo was taken before I learned that sharks have a sense of irony," I muttered. "Who are you?" "I'm Elaine," she said. "And we have a problem with your roof, Brooks. Come inside before you let all the heat out." She turned and walked into the house like she owned it. I stood there for a second, the rain soaking through my jacket, realizing that the void I had come here to inhabit was already full. The inside of the house smelled like cinnamon, damp wool, and old books. It was a sensory assault. I had expected dust and rat droppings. Instead, there were rugs on the floor, mismatched, frayed, but clean. There was a fire roaring in the hearth, and there were people. Sitting on the sunken sofa was an older woman, maybe 65, knitting something that looked like a scarf for a giraffe. That was Nora. She gave me a small, polite wave. "Hello, dear," Nora said. "You're dripping on the rug." By the window, a teenager with purple streaks in her hair was aggressively ignoring the room, thumbing through a book. Riley. She didn't look up. And coming out of the kitchen, carrying a toddler on her hip, was a younger woman with tired eyes. "Sutton." "Elaine?" Sutton whispered. "Is that him?" "That's him," Elaine said, pointing the spatula at me. "The landlord." I felt like I had walked onto a stage set for a play I hadn't rehearsed. "I'm not a landlord," I said, wiping my face with my sleeve. Elaine sighed, the sound of a woman who had explained the obvious too many times. "We're the tenants. Sort of. I didn't lease this place. We found it." Elaine corrected. It was open. It was dying. We moved in 6 weeks ago. We fixed the furnace. We patched the worst of the windows. We made it a home. It's my house, I said, but there was no heat in my voice. I was too tired for anger. You can't just occupy a ranch. Watch us, the teenager, Riley, muttered from the window. Elaine crossed her arms. Look, Brooks, it's pouring rain. It's 40 degrees out there. You have a truck full of boxes and nowhere else to go. Judging by the look in your eyes, we have a pot of stew and a dry sofa. We can discuss the legalities in the morning. Or you can kick 4 women and a baby out into a storm. She held my gaze. She wasn't begging. She was negotiating. She saw the exhaustion in me, the way my shoulders slumped. She saw the sad clown paint chipping off. Stew? I asked. Beef and barley, Nora chimed in. I dropped my duffel bag on the floor. One night, I said. Tomorrow, we figure this out. Deal, Elaine said. Now, about that leak in the hallway. We ate in the kitchen. The table was a piece of plywood on 2 sawhorses covered with a tablecloth. The stew was hot. It warmed a place in my chest I thought had frozen over. I learned the basics. Elaine was an art teacher who lost her job and her apartment when the district cut funding. Nora was her aunt. Sutton and Riley were former students who had nowhere else to land. They were a patchwork family, stitched together by necessity. I sat there, feeling the roll of the ocean in my head even though the floor was solid. So, Elaine said, breaking a piece of bread, what does a man like you do with a ranch like this? You don't look like a cowboy. You look like you're waiting for something to explode. I tag sharks, I said. Or I used to. Marine biologist. Sharks, Riley said, finally interested. Like great whites? Tigers? Mostly. Bulls. The ones with bad attitudes. I tapped my spoon against the bowl. I'm essentially a glorified dentist with a death wish. Elaine watched me. She didn't laugh. She was studying me with that intense, teacher-like focus. Why are you here, Brooks? Because there are no sharks in the pasture, I said, and I needed a break from the water. You didn't answer the question, she said softly. Before I could deflect again, a heavy pounding shook the front door. Not a knock. Elaine stiffened. The air in the room changed instantly. The warmth evaporated. It's him, Sutton whispered, clutching the baby. I stood up. Who? The county inspector, Elaine said, her face pale. Mr. Vane. Mr. Vane looked exactly like the kind of man who enjoyed ruining people's days. He wore a yellow raincoat that was too clean and held a clipboard like a shield. He stood on the porch, rain dripping from the brim of his hat, sneering at the house. Miss Stewart, Vane said when Elaine opened the door. I see you're still trespassing. We established residency, Elaine said, her voice tight. You can't evict us without a court order. I don't need a court order to condemn a safety hazard, Vane said. He slapped a bright orange sticker onto the doorframe. This structure is structurally unsound. The foundation is shifting. The storm drain is blocked. I'm posting a condemnation notice. The sheriff will be here Monday to enforce the evacuation. You can't do that, Elaine said, stepping forward. Vane smirked. I just did. And since the actual owner is absentee, I stepped out from behind the door. I loomed over Vane. I had spent the last 10 years hauling, thrashing apex predators onto the decks of research vessels in heavy swells. A bureaucrat with a clipboard didn't scare me. The owner is present, I said. Vane took a step back, blinking. Mr. Price? That's right. I looked at the orange sticker. What seems to be the problem? The problem, Vane stammered, trying to regain his composure, is that this ranch, with this storm coming in, the mudslide risk is critical. I'm shutting it down for your own safety. I looked past him, into the dark rain. I saw the slope he was talking about. It was steep, the soil saturated. He wasn't wrong about the risk, but he was wrong about the solution. It's not a death trap, I said. It's a logistics problem. It's a violation of Code 14B, Vane snapped. unless you can stabilize that slope and clear the main culvert by the time I come back for the final inspection. Let's say Monday morning, the sheriff clears the property. Monday, I said. That gives us 3 days. Good luck, Vane sneered. You'd need a construction crew and heavy machinery. And judging by your guests, you have neither. He turned and marched back to his county vehicle. Elaine turned to me. She looked defeated. He's right. We can't fix a retaining wall. We don't have the money or the tools. I looked at the mud. I looked at the rain. I felt the familiar hum of adrenaline, the same feeling I got when we were tracking a signal in a squall. We don't need a construction crew, I said. What do we need? Elaine asked. We need leverage, I said, and about 500 feet of high-tensile marine rope. The next morning, the rain had turned from a downpour to a steady, miserable drizzle. The mud was ankle-deep. I stood by the barn, looking at the failing slope. It was a mess. The earth was sliding, pushing against the rotting timbers of the barn's foundation. If the mud moved, the barn collapsed. If the barn collapsed, it took the power lines with it. So, Elaine said, walking up beside me. She handed me a mug of coffee. It was strong and black. What's the plan, Captain? We can't stop the mud, I said, taking the coffee. Gravity always wins, but we can divert it. With what? We have shovels and determination. That's about it. I walked over to my truck. I pulled out my gear bags. They were heavy, filled with the tools of my trade. Not hammers and nails. Winches. Carabiners rated for 3 tons. Kevlar straps used for securing sharks to the hydraulic lift. I need everyone, I said. Even Riley. Doing what? We're going to rig a diversion system, I said. We're going to use the fallen timbers from the old corral to build a breakwater for the mud. And we're going to anchor it to those old oaks using the winches. You want to tie the mountain to the trees? Elaine asked, skepticism dripping from her voice. I want to create tension, I said. Tension holds things together when they want to fall apart. I looked at her. Trust me. I know about holding things together. We got to work. I wasn't a contractor. I didn't know code. But I knew how to secure a load on a pitching deck. I knew vector physics. Riley, Sutton, I shouted, my voice cutting through the wind. I need you on the winch line. When I signal, you crank it. 2 clicks only. I'm getting mud on my boots, Riley complained, but she grabbed the handle. Mud washes off, I yelled back. Failure doesn't. Elaine was next to me, dragging a heavy timber. She was stronger than she looked. We wrestled the wood into place, bracing it against the sliding earth. You're enjoying this, she accused, breathless, wiping mud from her cheek. I am absolutely miserable, I lied, securing a knot with a flourish. You're smiling, she pointed out. Gas, I said. Must be the stew. We worked for 6 hours. My hands, calloused from salt water and rope, felt at home. I wasn't thinking about the empty seat in the submersible. I was thinking about the load bearing of a Douglas fir. We locked the system in place. I tightened the final ratchet strap. The timbers groaned, biting into the mud, holding the slope back. It's ugly, Elaine said, stepping back to admire our wall of debris and orange straps. It's structural art, I corrected. It'll hold. Then the rain picked up. Not a drizzle, a sheet of water. That's step 1, I said, looking at the sky. Now we have to clear the culvert, or the water will flank us. The days blurred into a wet, exhausting rhythm. We fought the ranch during the day, and we retreated to the fire at night. I started to learn the cadence of the house. Nora hummed when she cooked. Sutton paced when the baby cried. Riley pretended to read but watched us. And Elaine. Elaine was the anchor. She didn't let me hide. One evening, I was sitting on the porch, restringing a grapple hook. The rain was drumming on the tin roof. Elaine came out, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders. Why are you restringing that? She asked. Because the last one snapped, I said, not looking up. Is that a metaphor? It's a rope, Elaine. She sat on the railing, facing me. She waited while I kept my eyes on the rope, kept my hands busy so my mouth wouldn't confess anything. Then she slid a bowl of stew closer along the railing, like she was renegotiating my silence. What happened out there, Brooks? In the ocean? I stopped winding the rope. The memory was always there, a cold current running under my skin. We were tagging a tiger. Big female. She thrashed. The line snapped. My partner, he got tangled. Went over. I pulled the rope tight. I went in after him. I wasn't fast enough. The ocean is big, Elaine. It swallows things. And you blame yourself. I blame the knot, I said, my voice rough. I tied the knot. It slipped. She reached out. She didn't touch me, but she put her hand close enough that I could feel the warmth. You tied a hell of a knot on that retaining wall today. I looked at her. Her eyes were kind, but firm. She wasn't pitying me. She was challenging me. I checked it 3 times, I admitted. I know, she said. I watched you. She stood up. Come inside. The stew is ready. And Riley is threatening to play the guitar. Is she good? She's terrible, Elaine smiled. But we clap anyway. I followed her inside. When the porch board creaked under my weight, I didn't flinch. My hand stayed on the mug instead of reaching for the door latch to check my exit route. The letter came on Friday. A courier braved the mud to deliver a certified envelope. I opened it in the kitchen. The women stopped eating. Is it Vane? Sutton asked. It's the county, I said. I read the legal jargon. It's a mandatory evacuation order. They aren't waiting for the inspection. They've declared the zone a high-risk geological hazard area due to the forecast. The sheriff is coming at noon tomorrow to clear the property. No, Elaine whispered. We have nowhere to go. They can't force us out if the house is secure, I said, scanning the document. There's a clause. Unless a certified structural mitigation plan is in place and verified. We don't have a plan, Riley said. We have a pile of logs and some rope. We have me, I said. You're a biologist? Elaine said. Not a civil engineer? I can't certify a structural plan, I admitted. But I can file an emergency mitigation report and get a licensed engineer on a rush consult. I know a guy in Portland who owes me a favor. He'll sign, but he's strict. He'll need a full video walkthrough, photos of every anchor point, and a liability waiver. It's a temporary mitigation permit, not a permanent fix, but it buys us time. It might work, Elaine said, hope flickering. But we have to prove the culvert is clear, I said. If that drain is blocked, the mitigation is worthless. The water will back up and flood the foundation. I looked out the window. The rain was torrential now. The culvert, a massive concrete pipe that ran under the main road, was submerged under 3 feet of brown, churning water. It's blocked, I said. Debris, logs, mud. How do we clear it? Sutton asked. We can't reach it. I can, I said. I have my dive gear. You're going into a flood drain? Elaine asked, her voice rising. In this storm? It's just water, I said, forcing a grin. Water is my office. It's suicide, she said. It's the only way to save the house, I said. If I clear the obstruction, the water level drops. The threat is mitigated. Vane can't evict us. I stood up. I'm going in. Elaine blocked the doorway. She was small compared to me, but she felt like a wall. No, she said. I won't let you. You told me the ocean swallows things. This isn't the ocean. It's a mud pit. Elaine, move. Why are you doing this? She demanded. You bought this place to hide. You don't care about the house. Why risk your neck for us? Because, I snapped, the humor failing me. Because I can't watch another thing I care about get washed away. I can't stand on the deck and watch it happen again. The silence in the kitchen was heavy. My throat locked. I couldn't joke my way out of this one. The words had come out like splinters, sharp and impossible to put back. Elaine's expression softened. She stepped closer. You care about us? I'm fond of the stew, I mumbled, looking away. She took my face in her hands. Her palms were rough and warm. Brooks, look at me. I looked. We do this together, she said. You go down there, you take a safety line, and I hold the other end. If you slip, I pull you out. You don't go alone. I work alone. Not anymore, she said. You're part of the patchwork now. I nodded. Okay, you hold the line. The storm was a physical weight. The wind howled, tearing branches from the trees. We stood by the edge of the swollen creek. The water was black and violent. The culvert entrance was invisible, buried under the deluge. I was in my dry suit, the bright orange neoprene looking alien against the mud. I had a heavy-duty carabiner clipped to my chest harness. The yellow rope trailed back to the winch on my truck, where Riley and Sutton were standing ready. Elaine held the slack, looped around her waist, braced against a tree. 2 tugs on the line means pull, I shouted over the wind. 1 tug means slack. Be careful, Elaine shouted back. Rain plastered her hair to her face. She looked fierce. I stepped into the water. The current grabbed me instantly, trying to sweep me downstream. I dug my boots into the mud, leaning into the flow. I waded toward the culvert. The water rose to my waist, then my chest. Debris slammed into me, branches, trash. I reached the mouth of the pipe. I took a breath and ducked under. It was dark. 0 visibility. I felt around with my gloved hands. I found the blockage, a massive root ball tangled with a discarded tire. It was jammed tight. I pulled. It didn't move. I surfaced, gasping. It's jammed, I yelled. I need tension. Sutton, crank it, Elaine screamed. I hooked the winch cable to the root ball. I signaled. The line went taut. The truck engine revved. The root ball groaned. It shifted an inch. Then it stopped. I needed to cut the smaller roots holding it. I dove back under. I pulled my dive knife. I sawed blindly at the wood. The water pressure was immense, pinning me against the concrete. Snap. A root gave way. The ball lurched. Suddenly, the pressure changed. The water surged. The blockage broke free. The force of the released water hit me like a hammer. It threw me backward. My air tank slammed against the concrete. I spun, disoriented, tumbling in the black water. The safety line went tight. It jerked me to a halt, knocking the wind out of me. I felt the pull steady, relentless. Elaine? She was hauling me in. I clawed at the mud, finding my footing. I broke the surface, coughing water. Pull! Elaine screamed. They dragged me up the bank. I collapsed in the mud, gasping, staring up at the rain. The water in the creek was rushing freely now, the level dropping visible inches by the second. Elaine dropped to her knees beside me in a second, her hands gripping my shoulders, checking my eyes. You idiot, she said, her voice shaking. You beautiful idiot. Is it clear? I wheezed. It's clear, she said. She pressed her forehead against mine. You did it. The sheriff arrived at noon. Mr. Vane was with him. The rain had stopped. The sun was trying to break through the clouds. The creek was flowing smoothly, 3 feet lower than the flood stage. The retaining wall held. I stood on the porch, bruised and sore, holding a cup of tea Nora had spiked with brandy. Mr. Vane, I said, welcome back. Vane looked at the creek. He looked at the retaining wall. He looked at the dryness of the foundation. He looked disappointed. The hazard has been mitigated, I said, handing him a document I had typed up on Riley's laptop. Here is the emergency mitigation report, stamped and signed by a licensed civil engineer in Portland. Vane took the paper. He read it. He looked at the sheriff, who shrugged. Looks clear to me, Vane, the sheriff said. Water's moving. House is standing. Paperwork is signed. Vane scowled. Fine, but I'll be monitoring this property. One slip. We'll be here, Elaine said, stepping up beside me. She put a hand on my arm. We aren't going anywhere. Vane got in his car and left. I looked at Elaine. We? You can't get rid of us now, she said. You owe me a new spatula. I broke it digging mud off your boots. 2 days later, the sun was actually shining. The ranch smelled like wet earth and pine needles, clean and new. I was in the kitchen. I had a document on the table. A trust agreement. What is this? Elaine asked. I can't run this place alone, I said. I'm good at the crisis part. I'm terrible at the living part. I need a team. You're hiring us? I'm partnering with you, I said. This is a vesting agreement. It puts 40% of the property into a trust for you, Elaine. It vests over 12 months, contingent on you managing the operations. You run the house, you run the land. I handle the logistics and the repairs. Brooks, she said, her eyes widening, you can't just give me equity in a ranch. I'm not giving it to you, I said. I'm securing my investment. If you leave, the roof leaks, and I starve to death. It's a pragmatic decision. Nora slid a thick folder across the table. Attorney reviewed, she said, peering over her glasses. Ready to file at the courthouse on Monday. Elaine looked at the paper. Then she looked at me. You're a terrible liar. I know. She picked up the pen. She signed it. The scratch of the ink was the best sound I'd heard in years. So, she said, putting the pen down. Does this mean you're staying? I think I am, I said. I think the sharks can wait. She walked around the table. She didn't hug me. She took my hand, lacing her fingers through mine. It was grounding. It was real. Good, she said, because the sink is clogged. I laughed. It wasn't a deflection. It was just a laugh. I'll get my tools, I said. I walked out onto the porch. The air didn't smell like loss anymore. It smelled like wet grass, wood smoke, and a second chance. The end. Closing thoughts. The core lesson. I learned that you can't build a life by just bracing for the next disaster. Sometimes you have to open the door and let people help you hold the roof up. Resilience isn't about standing alone. It's about who stands with you in the mud. Engagement. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe so we can share more stories like this.